Okay, let's talk about a game, Alzara. Radiant Echoes. Maybe you heard of it. It was this really promising JRPG, went on to Kickstarter for funding.
Right, and it didn't just meet its goal, it blew past it.
Totally. Pulled in over 300,000 US dollars from, what, over 5,000 backers. People were clearly excited.
Absolutely. You'd look at that and think, okay, fairy tale stuff for a new game studio, smooth sailing from here.
Yeah, you really would. But then, well, the story took a pretty sharp turn, a really disappointing one.
Because despite all that excitement, all that money raised, the developer, Studio Camellia, they're shutting down.
And the game, Alzara, it's just not happening. It won't be released.
It's a really tough outcome, especially, for all those people who backed it. It really peels back the layers on how complex game development actually is.
And maybe what crowdfunding really means versus what we sometimes think it means.
Yeah.
So today, let's try and unpack what went wrong with Alzara. What does this whole situation tell us about, well, the realities of crowdfunding and just how incredibly tough the game development world can be, especially if you're trying to figure out how these projects sink or swim?
Well, let's look at the numbers again. Studio Camellia raised 294,428. That's about 339,000 US. Big numbers.
And the vision was clear, right? A JRPG influenced by classics. They've mentioned Final Fantasy X, Golden Sun, games people love.
Definitely. But then the official statement dropped. Studio closing. And crucially, no refunds for backers.
Oof. Yeah, that's where the reality of crowdfunding kind of bites, isn't it?
It really does. Kickstarter's own policy is very clear. They state it's not a store.
Right. So these campaigns, they always have risk baked in. People put money in hoping for a game, yeah, but there's no actual guarantee, no legal requirement for a refund if the project just fails.
You're basically supporting the attempt to make something, not pre-ordering a thing that definitely exists.
It's a really important distinction, one that maybe gets lost sometimes in the excitement.
I think so. You're investing in a possibility, a dream, really, not just making a purchase. Situations like this, unfortunately, really hammer home what that risk actually means.
Yeah. But okay, Kickstarter wasn't their only source of funding, was it?
No, not at all. And this is where it gets even more interesting, I think. They used personal savings, too.
Okay.
And they got money from what they call business angels, banks, and institutions. Plus, they were even accepted into Microsoft's Developer Acceleration Program.
Wow. Okay, so personal money, angel investors, banks, Microsoft. That sounds pretty solid, like they had multiple bases covered.
It definitely sounds like a strong, diversified strategy on paper, but here's the kicker.
Uh-oh.
All of that funding, combined, only covered about half of what they actually figured they needed to finish Alzara.
Half. Seriously. So wait, what was the Kickstarter really for then?
According to them, it was primarily to demonstrate market interest.
Okay. So proof. Like, look, thousands of people want this game, to show that to a potential bigger partner.
Exactly. They needed a larger industry partner, think a publisher or major investor, to come in with the rest of the funding. The Kickstarter was basically bait for bigger fish.
And did they find one? They went to big events, right? Tokyo Game Show, DICE.
They did. They pitched the game, showed the interest, but ultimately they couldn't secure any contracts.
Wow. Why not?
Did they say?
They made a really telling comment. They said that investors are now operating in a market where taking risks is discouraged.
So even with proof of an audience, the money people were still too nervous to jump in.
Seems like it. It's a tough climate out there. Investors are maybe more cautious than ever. They want sure bets, less risk.
Which makes sense from their perspective, I guess, but it's brutal for creators.
It is, and it really underlines what the studio said. Many say that every released game is a miracle, and that couldn't be more true.
Yeah, that quote hits hard. And it's not just indie studios, is it? Even the giants struggle.
Oh, definitely not. Think about Blizzard reports suggest they cancel something like half the games they start.
Half! That's huge. Or remember that canceled Wonder Woman game from Warner Bros? Rumored to have had like $100 million spent on it before getting axed.
Good grief. Okay, so the odds are just stacked against game development in general, it seems, big or small.
It's an incredibly high-risk, high-cost industry. So for Alzara, the current status is, well, it's on indefinite pause.
Because the studio is liquidating.
Correct. They mentioned there's a slim chance maybe some other company could pick up the pieces, but even if that happened, it would inevitably become a different game.
And they released some footage, right, but not the full demo.
Yeah, some pre-production stuff. But the actual demo couldn't be released because of legal and copyright issues tied up in the whole liquidation process. It's messy.
What a mess. So wrapping this up, what this whole story really shows is, wow. Even with huge crowdfunding success, obvious fan interest, a passionate team, connections, making a game, getting it across the finish line.
It's just incredibly complex, full of financial hurdles, market challenges. It's a fragile balance.
A very fragile balance between the creative dream and the cold, hard cash needed to make it real.
Absolutely. It really makes you think, doesn't it?
It does. So for you listening, when you think about backing a project on Kickstarter or just the future of indie games, when investors seem so risk-averse, what does a story like Alzara's make you wonder about that balance, about where things are heading?